truth become evident to all, and may mercy and justice prevail. We thank you for our Lakeville police, for firefighters, and for first responders, and pray that our town will always show them the honor and respect they deserve. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any additions or edits to the agenda?
Yes, new business, under X, item D, to discussion on fireworks for the town.
I see you use it for it.
For July the third, to the date that it's set. A private enterprise is July the
Anything
third.
else? Then the agenda stands as edited.
I approve, I move we approve the agenda as.
Okay, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And our agenda stands as edited. So for the mayor's communications, I think we are already 35 minutes behind here. So to the point of being as prudent with our time as we possibly can, I would just like to say very briefly that, this has been, for one thing, it's good for us to have an open town council meeting where we have people here. We're sorry more people can't be here, but we're glad to see everyone out there. This has been a difficult year for all of us. None of us expected 2020 to be as it's turned out to be. We certainly had a lot of hard things to do, a lot of hard decisions to make with COVID. And everybody lived up to their part. Everybody adapted. We homeschooled. We washed our hands. We learned to wear face masks. We washed our hands. We learned to be more effective shoppers. We adapted to all those things. And I would particularly like to say that, our fire department and our police department were always willing to do the hard things. It's an unenviable position to be in when you're having to enforce regulations that constrain what people can do, even if they know that it's good and it's important for them. And they never ducked it one time, and so I think they're very admirable in that. And I think it's something, as we move now into the budget season or adopting our budget, we're going to be talking about that tonight. There certainly has been a lot of hard work that has gone into developing this budget, though we have not had any town council meetings like these where the public is here. There have been myriad meetings, long meetings, daily weekly meetings, in order for us to really review all parts of the budget. All the department heads have participated. They've given us their input, invaluable input. We have scrubbed the budget. Sam has reworked the budget over and over and over, changed the numbers very willingly and cheerfully, I might say. new boardwalk project.
Madam Mayor, Dean, can you give us just a quick update on the new marine boardwalk and then all of Rod River Retreat?
Yes, sir. The marina is open. Yay! Yeah, it is open. We have received a temporary CO from Rutherford County Building Inspections. The only piece that's left to completing the marina with the current contractor is the fire suppression main line. All the laterals and standpipes have been put in and inspected. They will come out, run a 4-inch supply line to those outlets, test them, and then we should receive our full CO on the marina. Also, out here in the marina parking lot, we have got all the new lines and everything painted. We've got the new traffic pattern out there. It's a one-way in, one-way out, and that helps align boat traffic for the new boat ramp. Any questions on the marina? Also, just to let you know, as we spoke in the Marine Commission meeting, is that if everyone that is on our waiting list takes a slip, the marina is full with a few remainder on the waiting list. So, very successful project.
Just one question on the marina.
Mhm.
You and I talked about that first day. Are we still gonna put up a sign, which I thought was a great idea that you had, that bicyclists, anyone bicyclists have to walk their bicycle
Yes,
on the boardwalk, and that all dogs have to go on a leash?
yes. And we're gonna add a wintertime sign for caution due to slippery from freezing, which wood would do the same thing, but we just wanna caution people that the aluminum, if moisture freezes on it, it's gonna be pretty slick. But we'll do that as a wintertime thing.
And I maybe should already know the answer to this, but do you have plans to put some kind of sign out on the fingers that boat owners only, to try to deter public from walking?
If that is y'all's directive, I will be glad to do that.
That's something that we should consider. Well, the marina, the boardwalk, people can make a turn and walk out to the boats. And, I know that from the fall, they have gates up, where you have to have access to get into where the boats are. I just think for the people that rent the slips, for their safety, I don't guess, we don't put up a gate or something like that, but I think it should be restricted for foot traffic to the people that are renting those slips for security, as well as safety.
Yeah, and then Dock A should put public walking access. The people are gonna want to go out to the end and take a photo. I mean, it's perfect spot for it. But those are those temporary permits and the single-sided, eyelash.
That's just something that, I probably didn't make a motion that we looked into, or had you thought about it?
I've been questioned several times about it, but I've also heard the other side of it, that people like to walk out. It makes them feel more in the lake. They want to walk out there. But there again, you're going to have honest people doing it. Then you're going to have people that are not so honest or
And you're
nice
gonna have
doing it.
people that will walk out regardless of the sign.
Correct. Correct.
About security, what do you plan?
Right now, for the only plan that we have for security is all the cameras in the marina parking lot have been replaced with high definition cameras, and they are piped into the Lake Lure Police Department. We are getting ready to put 8 more cameras out around the marina, so we will have a high definition camera with night vision that'll look down each of these eyelashes at all times, and they're recorded on a hard drive so that we can go back and pull up that data, which they have helped us in the past to see some of the things going on that we need to.
Dean, are they hardwired into the police department? How they get there?
I think they're transmitted through internet to you guys, isn't it?
It's the hardware, the officer.
And they have a TV like this that's got all of the cameras broke down, and they can zoom in on them. They can do whatever they need to do. They monitor them while in the police department at all times. And that's another thing that we can also talk about at a future date or whatever. But we got the capability of streaming these cameras online for people to click on and say, hey, what's going on in Lake Lure? And they can look through these cameras if it pleases council to do that. We've got a couple cameras that are pan-tilt zoom cameras that we can actually turn and zoom into an area, and they would not have that access online. Only the police department would have that availability to actually move those cameras.
So, Madam Mayor, maybe what we could do, is we could phase in security. So cameras being the first step, we start to have incidents, where equipment's being missing, or whatever, we can then take the next step. If council would want to try this to see how this goes, or with just the cameras to see if we can facilitate kind of
It's
security.
probably a good idea.
River, did you send that out to them from Kurt? Okay. You guys received the report from Kurt on the river boom out here. Kurt and I met out there. We looked at it. We looked at why it failed the last time. And Kurt gave us an opinion. Is that correct to say, Kurt? An opinion of what he believes the new anchoring system on that bank will do. My recommendation is let's go through it and see. The boom, some people have got misconstrued and said that the boom broke. The boom never broke. All it did was it slid an anchor out of the bank into the lake, and that's all it done. So the boom held true, the boom's tight, the anchor system was weak. And we've corrected that problem by adding a second 2,400-pound concrete block and buried it under the ground. And my recommendation would be, as Curtis said in his opinion, is let's leave it, let's let it see what it does. If it comes back apart, and the reason being is, Kurt could elaborate a little more on, is the soil out there. Morris Park is built from loose soil, from dredged materials from the river. If it comes apart again, then what we could do is go in and do soil nailing and then anchoring back into the soil with anchors and the concrete block. But I really believe this last one that washed out, it was just set too close to the shoreline, and there was erosion on the shoreline, which Kurt puts in here that we should rip wrap and armor that shoreline through there. I really believe it just really eroded away, exposed the boom or the anchor, and let it slide out of the bank.
There's an awful lot of pressure on that, building on across the lake, and all those logs and everything come down there. And, if it goes again, I got both y'all's phone numbers.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, John, I really believe a lot of it came down Pool Creek before that boom ever failed. There was a lot of material come out of Pool Creek that I had never seen that creek do that before.
That's interesting. Why do you think that happened?
Only thing I can think of is maybe more of the rain come across that side of the mountain opposed to the way it normally comes right down the gorge, which would be the river. Only thing I can think of is it came more off of the Hendersonville, what's that mountain up there, Sugarloaf Mountain. Only thing I can think of is most of it come off of that side, because it really flushed that river out. And like I say, 14 years, I've never seen trees coming out of that river, and I did that day. So I believe a lot of the problems was from that. There was some from the river, but I believe that Pool Creek's what got us this time.
That's the two largest tributaries, right?
It is.
Frog River and Pool Creek.
It is.
I'd have to get in and consider another boom, you know.
It'd be a much smaller boom, and it could actually be put up next to the road bridge to where it really wouldn't affect the lake or anything at all. I could do that, yes, sir. And I may even have a couple of booms already. I'm not for sure yet, but I don't know if we extended this one a little further or not. If we didn't extend this one, I've got two booms over on the other side of the river right now that we could use in that configuration. Yes, sir.
Next, I'll refer to, give you an update on sewer, so you can talk to you about where we are, where the development is with the
Okay.
Kurt, maybe you want Kurt to turn that a little bit so people back there
I mean, facing the population.
yeah, maybe turn sideways. and then
This way?
you kind of speak. Can y'all hear back there in the back? Okay.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me? All right. Shannon, help me go down the list because I didn't write the list. So the first item would be the ER and EID. Labella's working on the ER and EID, and I talked to after this is cracking. After the update, there was an update, a Zoom update today at from 10 to about 11:15, and they, I would say it'd be summertime. It's in the July and August timeframe. They're estimating to finish the ER and EID, and ER and EID, just so you know, ER stands for Engineering Report. And the EID part is Environmental Information Document. And so they have to go together. It's in one package. And that document establishes what the chosen alternative is. So the ER and EID will have several alternatives in it that are evaluated, and there'll be one recommended alternative, master alternative for the whole program. And then in that master program, there will be phased. And then phase one will come out of that. And then phase one is the $12.5 million.
So we can't get the $12.5 million without these documents being and submitted to DWI.
Right. And the unfortunate part, and even the regulators sometimes wish the regulations weren't written the way they were, but common sense would seem to indicate that as you're doing an ER and EID, that there would be some items that you would know, common sense, that you're going to have to do them. Even though it takes time to do the formal document, it's not going to change some initial recommendations. However, you can't start on those. You can't start on those. They're locked in because the state requires the ER and EID to be officially approved, the whole enchilada, before you can spend a dime on any part of it. So part of the problem that we're facing is we do believe at this point that manhole rehabilitation is going to be in phase one. And we can't start on the manhole rehabilitation using the $12.5 million. We can't use that pot of money because the gate's locked on it. And the key to unlock that gate's it's a letter that we get back from the state, and it'll say the Lake Lure ER and EID is approved. And once we get that letter, then it opens the gate to start using that. The SOC is, drafts of that have been submitted. We're circulating that internally. We've been in communication. The regional office in Asheville already knows a lot of the components of the SOC, the formal document, because we've been talking to them about it. One of the interesting things that we have found about the regional office is they are extremely cooperative with the current board. They get it, and they are helping us. They're actually making suggestions. Did you put this in there? And we're working together as a team with the regional office on this SOC. SOC stands for Special Order by Consent. So under an SOC, it's an agreement by this body and by the regional office, the state. It's a mutual agreement, and it's enforced by the court that we're going to do these improvements, and if we do these improvements, what we get in exchange is relaxation on the MPDS permit, the effluent requirements, and so on, because we can't meet them without the improvements, and they know that. So if you will promise to do these things in exchange, the state will give us relaxation on those parameters and stop the fines. The one thing about an SOC, which is very important to understand, is that it is like an agreement. It is highly enforceable, and the penalties in it happen automatically. So if you miss a date, then you get fined.
All right. I'd say one of the things that we have discovered, I think Commissioner Revere brought this out at previous meeting, we now have different divisions of DEQ talking to each other as well as to the town and our engineers. So now everyone's out of the silos. We have
Mhm.
different divisions of DEQ plus dam safety, having conversations. And so we have torn down the silos. And so now we're starting to see overlap. And we're beginning to see we get a lot of mileage out of one project that satisfies different sections of DEQ. One is, for instance, the low-level outlet that we've been planning that's part of this 12.5. It not only satisfies the dam safety requirement, but also allows us then to satisfy the regional office's requirement for access to existing sewer, sets the stage for DWI to put in new sewer in the backshore of the lake. So it's a new day with the
Mhm.
transparency and cooperation with DEQ and the town. So Kurt's been a big part of that. I think alternatives analysis for them, Kurt, sent you that report from Schnabel
Right.
and low-level outlet that I mentioned.
Okay, so the low-level outlet, there are two reasons to have that. The very first one is dam safety. So the dam safety engineer, the main dam safety engineer for the state of North Carolina is a gentleman by the name of George Eller. He has a lot of power. He has staff working under him, but George Eller has said that dam needs a low-level drain. That's for the dam. The dams need that. You need to be able to, if you need to maintain the dam or do something with the dam, you need to be able to drain the lake. You can't do that. Now, you think you can drain the lake because you've seen it go down. What they're talking about is going way down for maintenance on the dam. Going down 12 feet, I know it has a huge impact on you all. From a recreational standpoint, it's not very helpful when you're trying to maintain a dam that has a height of 100 feet, okay? So the dam safety officer is telling this town you need to have one. On the flip side, when you come to replacing a sewer line that is laying at the bottom of the lake, that's a tough challenge. How do you do that? The engineering firm that's evaluating the alternatives has several alternatives that involve putting it in the area that you can draw down. And we call that, when we were doing the penstock, and you saw the huge area that was exposed, the shoreline that was exposed, that has a name. We've been using a name for that. And that's called the backshore. Backshore, that's what that's called, what you see when you drain the lake down 12 feet. That seems to be the most logical place to put the pipeline system now, the replacement pipeline system. It'll still be underwater, that's true. But the benefit is that you can get to it. You can drain the water down and you can get equipment in there and you can maintain it. You can't do that with a 18-inch diameter cast iron pipe that's 90 feet down at the bottom of the lake. You can't get to it. And if there was something, God forbid, there was something that happened to that pipe, we all know in this room that would be a significant, major, difficult problem, and it would cost a lot of money to fix that. So we're trying to avoid that from happening and replace it before some catastrophic event occurred like that. So if you have a low level drawdown that George Eller, the dam safety officer, is pointing a finger and saying you need that, if we had that now, we could draw the lake down to build the sewer system, see, if that's the recommended alternative. Now, the engineers haven't finished their document yet, so let's not jump to conclusions. They still have to do their work. But still, in all of our discussions, that seems to be a very viable option.
Yeah, quick summary from the alternatives analysis on the dam for you.
Okay, Schnabel did an analysis of the dam. What should we do with this 100-year-old dam? They had essentially, I would say, three main alternatives. Two of them involve repurposing the concrete that's there. And the third one is a new dam. One of the two alternatives to repurpose the dam is basically, although it was set up as an option, it's called cross bracing. I think it's the least costly alternative, but it is it has a lot of problems with it. And it just does not appear to be a viable option. Cross-bracing does not seem to be a reasonable approach. So that one pretty much is not in favor. The other one is to basically fill, most of you know that it's a barrel. There's a series of barrels out there. And that type of dam, it's an unusual type of dam. Most dams are what's called a gravity dam. So you overcome the hydrostatic pressure of 100 feet of water simply by the weight of concrete. It's dead weight, locked into the bed of the concrete, and the rock bed. That's a gravity dam. So the way to do that is convert the existing dam to a gravity dam, which means a lot of concrete. It's so much concrete, they would probably have to build a cement concrete manufacturing facility right there. They wouldn't be trucking it in, they would make it right there. So you're in a sense, not really in reality, but the way to think of it is you're filling those barrels in. Not really, but you can kind of think of it that way. And you can converting it into a gravity dam. A lot of the reasons to do that, it has to do with seismic or earthquake issues. That now the dam, they didn't have those kind of regulations in the 20s. They didn't have to meet that kind of criteria. You do now. And so that would solve the seismic issue. That's been price tagged around $60 million by Schnabel. Another alternative is just build a new dam downstream. That essentially cost about the same amount of money. Oftentimes, I have rebuilt, my bailiwick is water and wastewater. I've rehabilitated a lot of existing wastewater plants. As an engineer, I would much rather build a brand new plant than try to fix an old one. There's a lot of problems trying to get into an old facility and know what to take out and rehabilitate than just build something new. That's why the costs are relatively the same. When a contractor has to go into an existing structure and protect it and work around it, they would rather just build something new. And those are the two options that you have. And of course, then the hydroelectric facility gets involved in those two options.
Give us a little update on hydro, some of the projects you're working on. You got almost done with the gate hoist.
Yes, the gate hoist is actually done. It's been tested. A preliminary test has been done with Director Dean Lindsay. So we're just having the final formal inspection, which I will be there. It'll be next Thursday. And that's to lift up the drum gate. And it's just basically a big can that sits down over the intake structure and prevents water from going in. And that will be the last of the major projects that we've been involved in the last 6-7 months.
So the League of Municipalities has asked us to go in and take care of some business. So we've got everything done.
Mm-hmm. We have finished the League of Municipalities was involved with risk assessment. There were 6 items that the engineer who came down and evaluated the hydroelectric facility. Currently, all 4 of the 6 have been removed. They've been addressed. The engineer has come back out and looked at them, and he's taken them off his list. There are 2 that are left. Those 2 are a emergency action plan, operational plan on the Tainer gates, and general O&M maintenance plan. It's actually 3, probably 2.5, 3-inch 3-ring binders. If you printed it all out, would be 3 of them. That's all in PDFs, electronic submission. That went last week to the engineer, and he's reviewing those now.
Any questions for Kurt? This does set the stage nicely for the budget when we get there, but any questions for Kurt about those items that he's talking about?
Kurt, would you take just a second and explain why we're letting the lake down for a short period of time this winter for the warranty?
Yes. The penstock was fully rehabilitated. There was a full structural liner inside that penstock. Essentially, we built a pipe within the pipe. The company that did the installation, goes by an acronym, FRP. They have a 1-year warranty on equipment, the materials in there, and labor. And that will expire in December. So we're going to have the same people bring a team down, 2 or 3 people, come down from Ohio, and we need to go in there and make sure the pipe inside the pipe is doing what it's supposed to be doing. There are certain failure modes that could occur in there, and we know what to look for. We will take the whole team in there, and we'll inspect all those, make sure there's no failures. And if there is, then they have to fix them. So we don't want to lose that opportunity, that if there's some kind of failure starting, to have them fix it for free. Then there's 3 years later, the warranty expires on the material. So then we'll go back in 3 years later, do the same thing, make sure the material is fine. And then there should be an inspection like that periodically. I would guess maybe every 5 years. It could be after you do the initial 1-year inspection and then do the 3-year inspection, let's say 5 years later, which would be 5 plus 2, 7 years later, you're down there again. There's nothing, no failure modes are indicated. Then you can assess, the town can say, well, maybe we'll go in 10 years later. That's to be determined.
Kurt, thanks. There are no other questions for Kurt, and I'll ask Dean to come up and continue the story on the repairs relative to the small generator. Just for the audience, Dean Lindsay is our new hydro director. He has a background in power generation and maintenance in large facilities, so he was hired to come in and get control of the hydro operation. So, welcome, Dean.
Hey.
What's happening with small generator?
All right, for our small generator, we're starting for the reinstallation. We're supposed to get our rotor back rebuilt on the 19th of June. And the schedule now for the reinstallation to start 29th of June. So this estimated 5-week turnaround, and after that, that's when we're expecting the generator to be back online, start producing power again. But
Sounds good. We did, we have, in accordance with council's directions, we have changed courses on repair companies, but we're still on track, and we've made good progress there. And so we'll just help us out with that. So just let the council know, give you some feedback. We executed what you asked us to execute, and we're engaging the new firm to come in and give us the schedule, so we're still on track. Is there anything else we need to add to that?
you got it.
Okay. Last thing I wanted Dean to talk about, we're now officially in hurricane season, and so, Dean working closely with, Chief Waycaster, they're ever vigilant about storms and how we handle those storms, so I just wanted them to talk to council and the audience just a little bit about how do we prepare for storms, and how does that affect the lake, and how we operate the Tanner Gates.
Want to start?
I can if you want to. So, it's part of our operating policy for Lake Lure Fire Department and Emergency Management that we monitor the weather conditions continually. We monitor the National Hurricane Center. They advise us when a storm is several days out, usually about 2 days out, we can start making preparations. The reason why we start so far out and making preparations and trying to get predictions on how much rainfall for the town is so that Dean and his crew will have time to set the lake and to get ready for the incoming influx of water. And sometimes that can go into power generation, or that can go into Tanner Gate operations, just depending on how fast we need to react.
And from Schnabel, from the engineer recommendation, we're abiding by only lowering the dam or the water level by 1 foot per day. So that's what we're, during normal, that's what we try to do, a controlled drawdown.
So if you can imagine, if we're having to abide by a 1 foot rule per day, how far out that we have to realize that a storm is coming, and then it becomes a time game. Is the storm gonna hit us sooner than what they're predicting? Is it gonna wait a little bit longer than what they're predicting? And then by that time, after a day or two passes, the whole storm can change its course or path. So we might not even get hit with water. So that's what Dean and I are tasked with, is doing that fine dance of time and path. So there may be some times that we make decisions that we want to do a drawdown or kind of build up a cushion so that we can slowly and controlled method let the water come back up, but then you may not even see any water because the storm changed paths on us as we're preparing. So a foot in 24 hours is hard to work with and to predict the path of a storm. So that's why you see us up here and doing a dance all the time about trying to figure out our predictions and where we go from there.
So I just want to give board assurance that these two are on top of the operations. We're now officially in hurricane season, and so calls for close communication between these two as we move forward and prepare to deal with heavy storms. Anything else you guys would like to add while you're up there?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, very much. Okay, that's all I have.
All right. Okay, great. All right, we will now move on to our public hearing. This has to do with the 2021 proposed annual budget.
Sure. I'll go to this microphone when So as the mayor has already pointed out, this is a different kind of budget for us, given everything that you've heard the town is working on and is involved in. And so for official reasons, I just want to read the paragraph, then I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. This is to the mayor and the commissioners. It's from the town manager. And I just want to let the audience know, and the board knows, that working closely with the finance director, basically we're charged with pulling this budget together and submitting a balanced budget to this board in accordance with North Carolina general statutes. In accordance with sections 159.11, 159.12, at all of the general statutes for North Carolina, it is my duty to submit for your consideration the proposed balanced budget for fiscal year 2021, commencing July 1, 2020, and ending June 30, 2021. This budget is based on careful analysis of departmental operating budgets, capital improvement plans, and prioritized needs as identified by department heads and in budget workshops with town council. In summary, the budget is balanced at a recommended tax rate of 42 cents per 100 of property value. This memorandum provides summaries and detailed discussion of the budgets for general fund, water sewer fund, and electric fund. And in short, the general fund revenues and expenditures have been projected at $7,103,167. Water and sewer fund has been set at $1,570,110. The electric fund has been set at $601,500 for a total budget of $9,274,777. This budget does, in fact, raise the ad valorem tax rate from 36 cents to 42 cents per 100. It raises the inside water rate by 30%. It raises the inside sewer rate by 30%. And it mandates increases in revenues related to the lake by at least $165,000, and that is being worked on, the details by the Lake Advisory Board. So what does this budget provide based on the increases in revenues that you just heard me describe? It provides a path to begin rehabilitating the dam, rebuilding sewer collection under the lake, rebuilding wastewater treatment plant, insourcing wastewater treatment plant operations to cut cost. It provides a path to begin using engineering expertise on a day-to-day basis in operations.
Kirk Wright, SDG Engineering, is a fine example of that. You just heard that. This budget also provides for succession planning in finance, parks, recreation, lake operations, and it begins linking personnel performance to the current longevity bonus system. It provides a path to begin lobbying legislators to assist the town with infrastructure improvements. $60 million just for the dam. And the sewer is projected to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 million. This town can't do it on its own, and it's going to have to take a ride in and help from other levels of government, and that's why we have a lobbyist in this budget as well to help us with that. And last, it begins to build capital reserves. As we've discussed before in the past, we've been through a couple of iterations of sewer concepts and plans and designs, and we have spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $103,000, and we could not recoup that out of that 12.5 because we never had an approved EREID. And so we have to have that approved before we can actually tap the 12.5, but that basically exhausted our reserves. And we had to call timeout, change engineers, and move forward. So therefore, Honorable Mayor and remaining members of Town Council, Lake Lure General Public, it is the Town Manager's recommendation that the proposed budget for 2021 be adopted as presented, subject to any desired revisions by Town Council. So that is my duty, and so that has been submitted to Town Council, and the budget balances. There's a lot of detail and a lot of questions. Sam Carr, our Finance Director, stands ready to answer lots of questions, and I'll help as well. So.
Ask these questions many, many times prior to tonight. I'll tell you, lots of deliberation has gone in.
Second.
All in favor? That
Yes, I met last week. I can add a few things if you would put it together. Actually, I'm gonna go up here because I think you need to use a microphone for them to hear online. Is that true? All right, here, better. I'll go up. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to, UAB met last week. I want you to be rest assured, the UAB, made up of townspeople, is taking a look at all this engineering stuff that people have been putting out to you. You heard a lot of detail. Let me give you just a little perspective, step back a little bit, and tell you what you can expect to see, especially since we're spending your hard-earned money with these tax increases and so on and so forth. This is what you're going to see. This is what is happening. First of all, be rest assured that the sewer system in place right now is going to continue to operate. All right, it is degrading. We know it's degrading. We've got iron that's collecting down at the wastewater treatment plant. So that pipe that's in the middle of the lake is not going to last forever. So we got to get this sewer system online as quick as we can. So this is what's going to happen. This summer, with the special order of consent and the engineering report, we're going to get the state's blessing to say where you're going with the sewer system is A-OK. We're good with it from the state's perspective. That's going to give us the green light to start spending this pool of money to move forward. One of the first things that's going to happen is that we have to go down to the wastewater treatment plant and we have to clear out all that sediment that's been building up for years. Where is that sediment coming from? It's going right into the pipe from the lake. And a lot of straight lake water. It's leaking like a sieve. It's working, but it's leaking. So we have to clean that thing out to buy us a couple years. So we're going to take some of the money that we're using right up front to allow the wastewater treatment plant to work for another couple years. The next thing that's going to happen is the placement of this low-level valve that the town manager and Kurt have explained to you. But I want you to have a perspective on that valve, because I know everyone gets real nervous. They put a valve in the dam, and all of a sudden now they can drain the lake. But this is what's really going on from a lake owner perspective. That valve goes in, and it does allow us to lower the lake a little bit further. That's going to be hugely important for that sewer system, because that sewer system is going to be placed in that 20-foot level area in the back shore once they drain it. Without that, we'd have to put the sewer system underneath your boathouses. It'd have to be tucked into different areas. So that valve facilitates putting in that sewer system. It's important to remember that. So it has an operational value to it, but it has a hefty price tag. That valve is going to cost between $2 and $2.5 million to put in. It can be put in with the lake at full pond, okay, which means we don't have to lower the lake to put in that valve. But that's one of the key things that valve gives us. And as Kurt mentioned, it's a safety valve. So in an emergency, if we had to take the lake down, we would do that. But I'll tell you, from a homeowner's perspective, we never want to use that valve in an emergency. We never want to have to drain the lake, because that's going to release sedimentation into the river. It's going to have an impact on the fisheries, and it also is a little bit dangerous to the dam, because we're relieving pressure on that dam that's never had a pressure relief from it since it was built 100 years ago. Excuse me, 100 years ago. So that emergency part of the valve we never want to use, but it's there. And it makes the dam safety people feel like they're in a more comfortable place knowing that they could do that. Because you don't want to have something happen like in Michigan, a 100-year-old dam with a big rain event overcome the dam. That valve is going to prevent anything like that from happening in Lake Lure. So you're going to see those two things, taking all the sedimentation out of the wastewater treatment and that valve going in sometime probably this fall, early spring, which means the only reason that we have to lower the lake this year is to do the maintenance on the inspection on the penstock. So that's what we know right now. That's what we have in front of us. We don't think there's going to be any other events this winter that will have to take the dam down. But next winter, or maybe early in the spring if we get to it, we may have to bring the dam down to do the third piece of what's right in front of us, which is refurbishing those manholes. And most of the lake water that's going into the sewer system is going in via those manholes. So we have to go in there, and it's almost like having a hugely engineered caulk gun. We're gonna go in and seal those manholes to prevent that infiltration from messing up the wastewater treatment plant that we just spent all this money taking all the sedimentation out of. So that's the third piece that we may see in the spring, but most likely next winter. To do that, we have to lower the lake level down in order to make sure no water is going into those manholes you see along the shore, so that we can go in there and seal them for the next phase. As the engineers are working on the final solution, which is replacing that sewer system outright, which we're about a year out from that. So that's what's going on. So your hard-earned money in the budget that we just approved is going towards getting that stuff going. This is hugely important because we have done almost nothing since we started the engineering analysis 8-10 years ago, except wrap the pipes in the lake. So, good news is, we're moving in the right direction. The UAB is monitoring this. They got a briefing last week. We'll keep an eye on it to make sure that we minimize the impact to everybody who's living on the lake as we go forward. So I want to give you a sense that we're on track, we're on top of it. The dam alternatives is part of this too, but I'll tell you that decision is years off. But we're going to be prepared for that. UAB is monitoring that, but we want to be ready in case some infrastructure money, federal infrastructure money, becomes available. If that money from Washington becomes available to help us with the dam, either refurbishment or replacement, you got to have the engineering done. We've got that, the best engineers you can get. You've got to have the political will to go do that. We're working on that through our state senators, our District 5 and 11 that we're working, Senator Burr and Senator Tillis, to make sure we have political support to go do that, and perhaps government money can meet us halfway to help us with that dam refurb, because $60 million, we can't afford it ourselves. So that's in play too. But that decision, like I said, is a few years out. So my point is just to clarify for the community what's going on, what we're doing, and what we're using their money for. Any questions for me at this juncture? Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all I have. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
When we get to the point of replacing the sewer system, will that be able to be done at full pond, or are we gonna have to go down 20 feet?
Most of it will have to come down 20 feet to get that done. The reason for that is we're pretty sure, though the design has not been done, we're pretty sure the framework for all the piping that's going to go in is going to be in the backshore area, that 20-foot area, which means you have to get machinery out there with high tensile PVC. It's called HDPE. Put it together, bury it in the shoreline. We'll probably do it in sections as we go around the lake, and set up a pump network to push it along that as we go. But the lake has to be down 20 feet to get that done. So that's going to be done pretty much in the off season, post Thanksgiving to the late spring, in order to get that done. And it'll be done in a phased approach. It won't all be done at the same time, but you do have to bring the lake down to do that. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
There was no business to come before the Planning and Zoning Board. We're working in the background. The Community Development Department, I understand, is working with the, to bring our proposal to us to get our regulations in line with what the new North Carolina requirements are. So we're still kind of working on that in the background. There's been no business on that.
Patrick, I know Parks and Recreation now.
Yes, spigot that was leaking there, one of the sprinklers, so that's being worked on. So if you do see some water standing there, then it's gonna be taken care of in short order. So, we didn't have an update from the golf course, Mr. Bennett was not available, but they have had a couple meetings, aside from those, different, pieces. So our next meeting will be on July the 9th, that will be coming up soon. So there was also discussion for the Boys Camp Road, apartment development area. A lot of that is hinging on part grant that is still in process, and Dean has been working on that. That project has been in flux and has had several iterations of what that is gonna look like when it's finished. And it is, going to be restructured with a new plan that's going to be over multi-purpose use park. Been a lot of talk about the dog park over the years here, and we may have some opportunities to incorporate the dog park, picnic area, the non-motorized, boat launch, and possibly some preliminary camping, facilities there also with that property, and create a multi-purpose use space, that, generates, great opportunities for the general public and for residents here.
Thank you. I think that's all the boards we've met. We will move on to public comment. If there's anyone in the public who would like to, in 5 minutes, let us know if you have any concerns or things you want to share with us, or just please state your name and come up to the podium, and be happy to listen. Well, that having been said, we'll just move on then. Our next item is our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second it.
All in favor? Consent agenda. Consent agenda. We'll now move on to unfinished business. A, schedule a special meeting for the Placer Academy. Please.
That was, Madam Mayor, that was for us, the town hall meeting, which was amazing, that we had talked about. So, it's a matter of just for selecting a date, and then, we've got, 3 different time periods on that particular date that we will give a slide presentation and go over the budget to the public, and, certainly serve as a panel, where we can entertain questions from the public, and we will find a moderator to help us, with that, town hall meeting in the gymnasium. So it's a matter of this board choosing a date. Laura has been in contact with LLCA, and Laura has said any date, latter part of July, we will find, is that correct?
That's right.
So just, the board to choose a date, and we'll make that.
I know we had some discussion about a couple of the other, governmental organizations possibly representing. Is our date selection predicated on talking to them first or not?
I would say if you guys choose a couple of dates, and then we will get back with those engineers and DEQ and let them know. And we'll kind of see which ones align with best.
Great. New business, first one is our 2021 proposed annual budget adoption.
Couple things, I just want to say, is there a couple dates in July? I meant to try.
Oh, we want to start that now? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
I didn't make that clear.
Laura, have you got any suggestions in talking with them?
They were very open to any date that would work for all of you.
Yeah, a day of the week we think best, Wednesday of
We usually have our meetings on Tuesday. What about Tuesday, July 21st?
I guess we need to come up with a couple of options, Shannon.
We can do the 21st and 28th, and run those by DEQ and our engineers and see where we get the most bites.
The 22nd is our town council workshop, so I would not recommend
And we have people on our behalf that's going to be talking to legislators, policymakers, politicians about Lake Lure, so when the opportunity for financial resource comes available, everyone knows about it, and it's only natural that they'd want to help out Lake Lure if that opportunity comes, which we think it will. So this investment with this policy group is an investment in having all of our politicians aligned at the right time in the right place to help us get some resourcing for some of our projects. That's what the policy group, I just wanted to clarify that for everyone.
Do I hear a motion?
I will make a motion that we accept the contract as written for the policy group and make it effective immediately.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contract is approved then. We'll move on to our addition D, fireworks, in the town of Lake Lure on July the 3rd.
Certainly. So, as we come into the summer season, and with COVID restrictions, there's been a lot of discussion. And you've seen other communities in our region, and in the upstate of South Carolina that are postponing or canceling their fireworks, selections for this year. It is worth noting that, with COVID restrictions, our Duval Resort is moving forward with July 4th fireworks, display there, with social distancing guidelines. Local businesses have been soliciting for private seating for fireworks displays and such here. We have received a letter of, co-written letter from Chief Humphreys and from our Chief Waycaster regarding some concerns that we've had when we've had fireworks that have fallen on a weekend date in specific. For those of us who've lived here, remember the Sunday fireworks display many years ago. It hit social media very innocently enough, but over 10,000 people flooded into town. And it is a point of concern, but it is also an opportunity for our town to put a great foot forward to celebrate our nation's independence too. So I wanted some feedback from commissioners and have an open discussion about what our intent is with that, considering our current political climate, COVID restrictions, and what we want to do.
All right, would we, any discussion, would you like to hear from Dustin?
I think I'd like to hear from Dustin and Chief Humphreys. With your honest opinion.
Yeah, as a quick preface, we have, I think it may determine that as we've had put brakes on any social media promotion, things like that, to limit the exposure as part of the fun things of this too. So, thank you gentlemen very much for speaking to us tonight.
So, Sean and I got together, both of us have had several members of the staff and as well as us have concerns about the 4th of July celebration. COVID being one of the biggest concerns, but then it being on a weekend as well. And then we started getting information of towns and regions that are close to us that are canceling their celebrations. So it kind of struck us odd that they're all canceling, and then we were kind of worried that the valley would fill up, that the area would fill up like it done a few years back, and it would overwhelm our resources pretty quickly. On 4th of July, both of our departments we're all hands on deck. We bring all staff in, and we work all day long just due to the increase in population in the town on those days and that weekend in particular. And then during the event, we work on trying to get the crowds out of here and managing the crowds together. So we just had some of those concerns.
Yeah, definitely. What Commissioner Bryant brought up earlier, the 4th of July we had a few years back. I've been here for 20 years. For the most part, it's difficult, but it's manageable. That year opened our eyes to what it could be like. Most years we get cars out by about 11 o'clock. That year at 1 o'clock in the morning, we were still gridlocked with chaos, breaking up fights from road rage because we couldn't move vehicles. And a lot of things that are taking place this year are mirroring that weekend. So just a great concern for us. Like Dustin said, some staff members come to us because we're actually planning an event. And we had concerns before, but when other towns started shutting down their events, knowing that we might be the only event available for people to come to, we just fear great numbers coming into the gorge. And the biggest problem is a simple problem, but it's a huge problem, one way in, one way out. It's very difficult if we get the numbers that Commissioner Bryant was talking about, 10,000 people come in again. It's just a great concern, fear for safety for the people that's here.
And it's a big concern as far as the numbers, and like Chief was saying, one way in, one way out. It gives a good potential for some big safety concerns.
You had the 10,000, and it was after 1 o'clock before we got all the cars out. Other towns, I guess, were having their celebrations that time, right?
Yeah.
And now they're not. And, well, I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway, so it'll be on the record. How does that affect our ability to respond to emergencies of our residents?
So what we have to do is we end up staging in 3 different locations. We got units that's on this side of town, on the Chimney Rock side of town. We have the whole Morris Park area that's serviced, and then we have units on the other side. So that way you're not, you're not trapped or handicapped from being able to respond either direction. And then we also both have the capability of responding from boats, so that helps greatly as well.
It does restrict it greatly because when there's gridlock, it's hard to make it through. We put an officer on the far end just for response to the majority of the town. But
Places like Washington Road, that, you know, if you're in a gridlock, how you gonna get you can't get somebody up there.
Yeah.
exactly.
And so and we do our best to handle the fire and the police for the town, but we cannot manage what the EMS does. I can't request special, I mean, I can request it, but they just don't have the staff to give it to us, put additional units up here on this end, so it does strain us a whole lot.
Will in general, will the restaurants and everything still be under restrictions at that point?
They should, if we don't change phases between now and then, they'll still be limited to 50% capacity.
And that direction comes from the governor's office.
Yes, sir.
And the beach also would be falling into that same category. We are limiting, Lakewood Tours is limiting that to 500 folks into this time, and that would likely still be, part and parcel of that.
You don't love fireworks, you don't celebrate the 4th of July, it sounds like this isn't the year for it.
Well, I think about Roman Ball, they have a little different situation there. They've got a gate, they not allow people to come in there.
It's private.
And it's private, so, I would have a hard time saying, let's do it, and knowing how the 2 people that lead our departments that are affected feel. I would love to be able to do it too and have it,
Any more comments, questions?
Yeah, I'm on the other side of it, actually. I'm thinking that Rumbling Ball's gonna have their event, talking with Rumbling Ball. They're gonna try to adhere to social distancing. Everybody knows what the rules are. State of North Carolina, I don't think has come out with any guidance on fireworks, have they?
Not
They're
to my
kind of
knowledge.
leaving it up to the municipalities
Yes.
to do that. So, it's for the townsfolk, those people that are on the lake, not an issue, right? It's really, the real problem area we're talking about is the beach area, right?
The beach in Morris Park, right, this area right here near Town Hall.
Okay, and you think it's gonna be inundated, and it'd be hard to do social distancing with masks and everything down there? You think it'll be option wouldn't be to close the Morris Park and close the beach and still have the fireworks, or would that just create confusion?
If we close the park, I'm worried about it restricting the visual, like being able to see the fireworks. You can see them great from the lake.
Yep.
You can see them great from the park and the beach area. But when you start going around towards the post office and that area, you're closed off. You won't be able to see the fireworks. And then I guess part of Boys Camp Road, I've never seen the show from Boys Camp Road, so I don't know how.
From the dredge pits, you can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess I'm thinking through this. If we try to eliminate the problem by closing the beach in Morris Park, we're really creating a bigger problem with everyone trying to park on the side of the road looking at fireworks.
Yeah, one of the things that they did, Liquid Tours did, last year, before, Laura, they do admission for it, they do a buffet, and then they let people in.
Right.
At the beach. So that does limit that. You know, one advantage we have is North Park is the Meadows is now 3 times its original size too. So, you know, that makes, that does give us some more opportunity for social distancing.
A concern is everybody else is canceling theirs.
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern, that, okay, we'll see right away that we're having one and could be in that.
And that was our concern too. Sean and I tossed this over. We don't want to cancel 4th of July. We're both very proud to have that celebration in this town. But when the other towns started canceling all around us, it just started sparking the thought that we're going to be overwhelmed. Spartanburg was a huge cancellation, it just being right down number 9. A lot of people went to that. And then Columbus has a huge fair and fireworks event, and that was canceled. So those towns are fairly significant.
They kind of give, they're usually on the 4th. We're one of the few communities that do ours
On the 3rd.
off day, or as a municipality, right? Those are usually on the 4th and stuff, yeah. I do know after that, we had a large traffic planning kind of commission we put together. And in 2017, we lined the streets with caution tape. You know, the strip center, the commercial office, and that are now private property. And they could probably request and ask to close off that parking space there, because they can't find a place to park and block off the streets, they have no choice but to continue on too. From an enterprise perspective, for commercial business, for Chimney Rock Village, there's a large opportunity for tax money generation that we've lost in sales tax and such too. You know, it's a very precarious situation.
If we were to rope off Morris Park, that sounds strange. If we were to close off Morris Park and run the caution tape like we have traditionally, kissing people off the sides of the roads, people may come, but they'll have to push on through. I mean, there's nowhere for them to park. And the traffic jam comes when you're trying to get people out of Morris Park and out of the parking lots by the lake or in, that facilitates the jam more than anything. Those groups trying to get out. And if those places were roped off, it really becomes fireworks for the community. And that's right. Well, except the people are still gonna try to come.
Yeah,
And the traffic is, you know, they're gonna be coming off of the, artery we have, 474, Highway 9.
I would say there would probably be some bad media if we say we're having a fireworks show, but we don't give anybody a place to even try to park. If they say the whole town was roped off, we couldn't park anywhere, what was the purpose of advertising for a show?
Some concerns with that too is it'll draw, because we've seen with the social distance during the pandemic, people don't acknowledge caution tape. So that will have to pull a great deal of our staff to monitor them areas when they need to be on the road, monitoring traffic. So that's a concern as well there.
Any other, thank you all
And,
so much.
um,
Any questions?
Laura, you had, when we talked to the firework contractor, there was an option for an alternative date. So if we were to cancel the 4th of July, we could set it up for another date to do a celebration of some sort, but. Do what? Yeah, we did, Laura and I did speak about maybe doing it during Labor Day or, something coming up this summer, maybe after some of the restrictions have.
Or maybe pick a non-holiday weekend.
Sure.
To do it.
I'm okay with that too.
And do it on, you know, move to the weekend after Labor Day, which is, we're getting into the shoulder a little bit, you know? And have a celebration, patriotic, or whatever you wanna call it, and do that.
I know several years ago, it was, I couldn't tell you how long back, but we did it like July 3rd one, no, July 2nd, and on July 7th once also, because the weekend precipitates additional traffic as we've seen. Could be a possibility even in that same time frame, but not the weekend. And you could do a celebration, but during the week, you have people who are work professionals, they're not doing time, you know?
Good thing that Labor Day went down the road a little bit, conditions may change.
One thing we've tried to do is to promote activities and things to draw people to the court in the shoulder seasons. So, if, you know, we could have, celebrate, you know, patriotic celebration in, September, or, you know, or some other time, we can come up with whatever date is best, because as far as business goes, there'll be people here on the 4th of July anyway. It's usually very busy.
I don't want to put her on the spot, we do have the director of the Chamber of Commerce here, I guess we, Laura, would you like to come up and?
Discuss, the fourth and the alternatives to the fourth.
So I haven't been through where you've dealt with 10,000 folks, and we usually stay up on the hill up there, so. Because we can see the fire, we can see the, yeah, we can see the fireworks from the hill. So my thought is, you know, obviously with commerce and the impact they've already been dealing with, and suffering and the pain that I'm hearing, I know that they've all really been looking forward to something to happen like the 4th, because they lost Memorial Day weekend. I do know that people are showing up in the groves last weekend. I heard that Chimney Rock Village, it was as busy as it is the 4th of July weekend there. So sales have been good. We had the motorcycle gang come in, or club, not a gang, it was a club. Out of Greenville, 200 people, and they had record-breaking sales on that Sunday. They strictly came. They were very respectful. Some wore masks. They did the social distancing. So they spent record-breaking day in Chimney Rock Village. Just they're picking little areas to come and help. So there's a lot of that going on right now. I think with the 4th of July, I kind of like the idea of switching it to the 2nd, because then it's not on the weekend. So I'm kind of thinking out loud like you guys are too. My first response too, though, my husband looked at me and rolled his eyes. I said, well, if we have one road in and one road out, can we not control people coming in and out through tickets, or we don't publicize? Okay, that's what he said. Yeah. You can publicize that it's closed, that it's not, and then we have it, and only let the locals kind of know that you're having it. I've seen that done when I lived at the beach, so that the public thinks that it is canceled, and then you'd only have Rumbling Bald, that they could figure out how to go. When you're talking about changing it to Labor Day or the weekend after Labor Day, that is the Dirty Dancing Festival. So just keep that in mind. That's not going to work, I don't think. Because if we can have crowds, then we'll have that Dirty Dancing Festival. So I don't know if I'm being very helpful. It is a difficult decision.
You know, I just, again, I can't go against what our safety officials, how they feel about it.
Yeah.
I just can't do it.
Could I ask them on Thursday the 2nd or Tuesday the 7th during the week? We've done this during the
Well, could you have a private firework, as in on private property by the beach, small, for just like the hotel or somewhere, like just in the area? Could you do something small and permit something like that?
I think we can have it, but it will come. I don't think you can control, again, I don't think you can.
Well, I think the messaging that I'm thinking is you say that, Town of Lake Lure's not having fireworks, but you have a private person who's deciding. I'm just thinking the businesses, if anyone wanted to participate and have just a private fireworks, that's just gonna benefit a small group. You don't have to publicize it. You wouldn't publicize it, and then you could say it's canceled here, and then you wouldn't have a big crowd coming in.
How do the Joint Chiefs feel about the second?
Later.
I think that changing the day and particularly moving it to a day that's during the week would help out a whole lot, but I don't know. People are looking for an excuse to get out right now.
That is our busiest week.
Yeah, we're gonna have lots and lots and lots of people here.
Yeah.
Regardless of
Right.
whether there's a fireworks show or not a fireworks show.
Yeah, that's the point. People are gonna be here anyway.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not sure how much direct impact it would have on the business.
Because you think people will be here anyway.
I'm telling you, one of the comment, I don't know if I made that comment, I think in the Marine Commission. We're gonna have the biggest tourist summer we've ever had. That's my personal prediction. I mean, people are looking to get out of where they are.
Right.
And go somewhere beautiful like this. And, a couple of rental houses that I know of that already I see that, and, I think it's gonna be the biggest tourist summer season we've ever had. Not sure that's, with all going on, that's the best thing, but I think that's gonna happen.
Any other questions, discussion?
Thanks, John, for asking.
Thank you.
Consensus around the date, I'm seeing at least one side of the Joint Chiefs say the second may be better preferred to the third.
Well, my opinion is, let's take advantage if we're gonna have a fireworks show to move it to sometime when everybody's not gonna be here. And bring in people that, we're not gonna have a fireworks show and people will come stay a week to come to the fireworks show. It's a point. So we do it sometime, if it's even, the third week in September. You have some kind of, build it up as some kind of special celebration. We survived to, or whatever. And do it then, and let's bring people in on the weekend when they would not necessarily be. The craft show, is there a fall
Well, it's scheduled.
schedule? When is that?
I have to look, but I will.
Do you know, Laura, do you know the date?
The third weekend in October, 16, 17, 18, or 17, 18.
Have it then? I'm just saying, moving it to another day in July, let's do it here anyway.
My suggestion would be the first weekend after August, that we don't have something else.
If we don't interfere with something else.
Yeah, if we go too far, it limits people coming on the water. More people be able to come in the boats, for the Super Bowl. I think there's gotta be a couple of weekends in there.
And we demonstrate to the, to the community and to the businesses that we want to, we're trusting in our leadership not to do it then. We want to have it, and we want to have it where we can bring in people sometime when they would not necessarily be.
How do you guys feel about those dates that they mentioned? Awesome dates.
In September, so later.
Yeah.
That's
I think that would be better.
Because it gets further out from the pandemic and all that.
Yeah, we get 3 extra months there,
I've been to a tourist town before before they did it on, Halloween, and they also did a huge bonfire, for the community, and it was well received. People come out and hang out at the bonfire for a while until time for fireworks, and then fireworks go off.
I do know that we'll need to check with Linda about when the gazebo was rented on those units too. Because there are a lot of clients got moved to later in the year. So we have to keep them, because that's what the has to be closed off. It doesn't trigger for
Well, I don't know, do we have to take action tonight? I
That's what I'm
think
saying,
we
if we
just,
used to say it's not gonna be on the third, it's much like around the first, and we just open it, it's like when else, it might be on the
and maybe we could ask Commissioner Bryant to spearhead and come up with an alternative
I'd be happy to do that, yeah.
with Food Parks and Rec.
Yes, yes, because it is, I mean, that's the spectrum in which it doesn't fall.
Have we got any Parks and Rec